Good morning, aspirants. It's 5th of November today, and I welcome you all on today's edition of What to Read in the Hindu newspaper. I'm 𝗗𝗶𝗹𝘆 𝗡𝗲𝗄𝗏, Senior Mentor at Prepp IAS. While going through the articles, we will not only see its relevance with regard to prelims and mains, but we'll also try and interlink it with other GS papers as well. I am here to align your newspaper reading as a part of our GS syllabus. So let's get started. The very first article that is there in the paper and that catches our attention is about India-Israel ties are defined by trust and reliability, says Mr. Jaishankar. Now, while mapping this particular article in our syllabus, this will fall under GS paper to IR. For prelims perspective, we need to know about India's bilateral, regional, and global grouping. The key theme that has been tried to discuss in this particular article is about strategic convergence between India and Israel, counter cooperation measures with regard to technology and trust-based diplomacy amidst Middle East volatility that we are witnessing right now. I2U2 grouping, which is said to be Middle East Quad, which all members are there, why it is very much important for India. For prelims perspective, the other arenas that can be revised while going through this particular article is defense cooperation, wherein Heron drones that we are planning to import from Israel and also have imported, then Barak missiles, Abraham Accords and their implications, India's position on Gaza and West Asia. From mains perspective, we need to know India's growing engagement with Israel. It marks a pragmatic shift in foreign policy from the previous government till date by this new government. We got to analyze with regard to balancing ties with Arab world also. Right? This is how this particular article is to be seen. The next important article is about migration debate. Since the Bihar election is on its peak and would be concluded in just few days, so migration has been a hot pot for the Bihar state and also other state that we are seeing in the form of rising regionalism debate all across the India. So migration is not only seen to be through the lens of within India, but also when Indians leave for other countries for the better prospect of education and employment opportunities. So what are the flashbacks that we see in the form of rising regionalism, hate crimes that is rising against India abroad? So this could be a broader perspective. But this particular article is primarily talking about Indian migration, that too with specific to Bihar. But since migration is a key theme for both our GS paper 1 and GS paper 2, so we need to analyze it with the help of our data as well. So this article is relevant with regard to GS paper 1, Indian society, and also GS paper 2, social justice, GS paper 3, economy and employment as well. Right? The key theme that has been discussed over here is migration could be both symptom and driver of Bihar's developmental challenges. The politics of migration and demographic realities that hit India and certain states that they feel around when people from one state migrate to another. So for prelims perspective, since there is no recent census data revealed, it is yet to be conducted. So whatever we have in public domain is about 2011 data. We have to revise that migration data. What percentage of Indian population comprises of migrant population? Interstate labor flows and major migration corridors. What are the push factors and pull factors for migration? Migration corridor, which state are the hotspot of migrant labor and which all are the receiving one? From mains perspective, we need to analyze this particular article with regard to socio-economic and political dimensions of internal migration in India, and also the role of education and skill building in transforming a labor exporting states. Right? This is how this particular article is to be seen. Next important article is about compound effect. So this is relevant for GS paper 3, internal security, cyber crime and global governance. The key theme that has been discussed over here is rise of transnational digital fraud networks linking human trafficking, cyber crimes and financial exploitation. For prelims perspective, we need to know about the role of RBI in this to counter the rising cyber crimes. Also the role of CERT, that is Computer Emergency Response Team, role of Interpol, and UN conventions on cyber crimes. Cryptocurrency regulations in India. From May's perspective, we need to revise transnational cyber crimes in the new phase of organized crime in digital world that we are witnessing. Why the need of regional cooperation and cyber diplomacy in South and Southeast Asia is the need of the hour. And this is how this particular article is to be read and revised. The next important article that is there in the paper is about India's forest holds the future. So relevant for GS paper 3, environment, climate change and conservation measures. The key theme that has been discussed over here is restoration-based forestry and evolving role of Campa, native species and community participation in climate commitments. For prelims perspective, the arenas that we have to unfold while going through this particular article is about knowing about Green India Mission and its objective, Campa fund utilization, Forest Right Act of 2006. From mains perspective, we need to know about India's forest policy must shift now from plantation targets to ecological restoration, right? And also, the rising desertification in the era of climate change could impact a major agricultural land. So right now, the focus must shift to ecological restoration, not merely plantation drive that has been talked about for a long period of time. So what could be the role of community-based forestry in achieving NDC's goals as well? This is how this particular article is to be read and revised. The next important article that is there in the paper and that catches our attention is about how BRICS is challenging SWIFT. This is relevant for GS paper 2, IR and groupings, GS paper 3, economy, global financial systems. The key theme that has been discussed over here is BRICS move to de-dollarize transactions through BRICS Pay. This is majorly a push towards financial sovereignty amid Western sanctions and rising new multipolarity. Why so? Because every now and then there has been a fear of sanctions being imposed by Western countries, in specific USA. Dollar is the most widely spread currency, so we got to de-dollarize it. That is why the BRICS is pushing a newer form of currency that works well, if implemented well, could act as a potential safety valve. For prelims perspective, the arenas that we have to unfold while going through this particular article would be BRICS New Development Bank, what is CRA and what is SIPS, SWIFT versus SPFS versus UPI versus PICS. BRICS Pay represent the developing Western world's response to dollar hegemony, could be an important statement that we can analyze for mains perspective. And this is how this particular article is to be read and revised. The next important article that is there in the paper and that catches our attention talks about Supreme Court flags misuse of POCSO Act to punish adolescent relations. Now, relevant for GS paper 2, polity, governance and social justice. The key theme that has been discussed in this particular article talks about judicial caution against criminalizing consensual adolescent relationship, balancing protection with awareness and gender sensitivity. For prelims perspective, we need to know the key provisions of POCSO Act, age of consent under IPC and Juvenile Justice Act. Is there any difference between the same, or is it the same? From mains perspective, we can analyze the POCSO Act. While it is progressive in nature, but it needs nuanced interpretation to avoid moral overreach at times. Also, the role of legal literacy in safeguarding adolescent rights is the need of the hour. So this is how this particular article is to be read and revised. The last important article for the day is about Supreme Court to review surrogacy ban on couples with one child. Also, relevant for GS paper 2, polity, governance, ethics, and health. The key theme that has been discussed over here is balancing reproductive autonomy with ethical regulation under Surrogacy Regulation Act of 2021, the recent Amendment 1. For prelims perspective, we need to revise Surrogacy Regulation Act of 2021 and ART Act, Assisted Reproductive Act of 2021. The key definition regarding infertility and intending couple. For mains perspective, we can revise and unfold other dimensions such as state regulation of surrogacy must uphold both reproductive right and surrogate protection. Complete ban would not solve the problem. Right to reproductive choice, whether it's a part of Article 21 or not. This is how this particular article is to be read and revised. This is all from my end for today's Hindu newspaper. Till we meet for the next time, take care and goodbye.